Panel. Human societies are constantly trying to depart from the most oppressive forms of existence. Even if it means that it benefits us, we are trying to be less selfish than we already are. But these guys say it is completely fine for us to continue to be selfish as long as it advances our interests. This is the primitive world they want us to continue to live in. We say no to that. But first, a little bit of responses to the things we got from closing government in today's debate. First, they talk about how rights come with responsibilities. So because animals cannot be ascribed responsibilities, it is unjustified for us to give them rights. First, we respond that the creation of conservation centers means that to an extent, these animals can be protected and a certain level of control can be exerted upon them. But on a second level, we do not feel that responsibility is the foundation for the creation of rights. We feel that rights are created upon moral and protectionist ideas. And this is something which is particularly important. So there are certain people who cannot contribute meaningfully to society, but cannot be reasonably controlled, or their responsibilities cannot be placed on them. But society still seeks to protect such class of people, like people that are insane and babies who do not immediately give any kind of benefits to society. So we reject that premise that rights must be premised on responsibilities. We feel that rights will be premised on moral and protectionist ideas, and this is something which they are failed to engage in today. The second, they talk about animals honor the principle of rights in mind. So we should hold animals to the standards that they have set for themselves, or the standards of nature. We say this is a lie. We say no to this argument. For example, because this is something which is extremely immoral. Primitive societies exist with structures that they have created for themselves and ensure that and act very badly to one another. They kill one another in such primitive societies. But this is not a justification for the right to life to be extended to such primitive societies. Because before post-colonial Africa and so many societies in time past had issues with regard for life and regard for structure. Right was the premise of such society, but this didn't legitimize the killing of other people. But the fact that we understand moral status, it makes it a burden on us to ensure that such status is advanced to people. Then Tobi comes and talk about how biological similarity means that because animals and humans are biologically different, animals do not deserve protection. David already engaged this point on how we talked about sentience as something being a similarity. For the fact that these animals can feel, for the fact that these animals can emote, for the fact that these animals, some of them even have organized societies, means that they have some similarities with mankind. So the fact that we are not equal in DNA does not mean that they do not deserve protection. Because of this kind of idea that the ones that primitive societies were built on. That was why black people were disregarded. And this is something that this guy said wasn't a big deal. But this is the rationale behind such racist policies in the first place. And we feel like this is particularly harmful. And then they come and talk about how moral status and moral equivalence are not the same thing. But we feel like moral equivalence is created when moral status is created in the first place. When moral status is created, that is when moral equivalence could even exist within space which we live. For example, if we live in a world where black people were not equal, were not equivalent to white people in terms of moral stuff like they want to claim, the fact remains is that we would always feel like black people are not morally equivalent to black people, and therefore black people are not deserving of protection from white people. We feel like this is something which is completely flawed and is a defense for all the wrong things which we want suffers from. But before I summarize the debate based on the important things in today's debate, I'll take up one.
Okay, so blacks and every other oppressed human beings before were not aware of their rights. Today they are aware, hence the progressiveness David argues. Will there ever be any time in the future when animals, even with the help of human beings, develop a moral status enough to actualize their rights?
There are societies that would never be reached by human civilization. That doesn't legitimize our going into those societies and killing them or denying them of their basic right of existence. That doesn't mean we shouldn't advocate that those societies continue to exist, because this is what these guys want us to do in today's debate, and we find it particularly problematic. David has already engaged opening. Let me go to the summary of today's debate, closing quickly.
Yeah, here's the thing. Parents and their children have moral status, but parents can debate on the rights of their children because they are not moral improvements. Like, what's your take?
Tobi, that's ridiculous. We do not even feel like you're wanting to write on morally bankrupt principle is something that is good. Parents do not override the rights of their children. That's something we are very proud to oppose on our own side of the house. Now let us summarize this debate based on the things that happen. So what is the most moral thing to do? Because this is a particularly very important issue in today's debate. So these guys talk about how opening government talks about how human beings have perverse incentives. That's why we want to advance our morality by using animals. But we feel like even if we are doing stuff, which we do not feel like we are, we feel that for the fact that it benefits these animals and benefits human society, as David already analyzed, is something which we find that we should rejoice at. The fact that we care about people enough to look outside of ourselves and advance their interests is something which is particularly important and something which we are very proud to defend. But these guys feel like the continuity of human species and whatever benefits us to the supreme moral ethic, we feel like this is justification for all the wrong things. So because I want to advance my interests, or because I want to live longer, or because I feel like this is the best thing for me to do at this time, means that I should infringe on the rights and the existence and violate every other individual and every other person in the world. We feel like this is something which is essentially morally bankrupt. The supreme moral ethic is not one which advances your interest to the exclusion of other people. That is one thing that I feel to the exclusion of other species, because this is something which is particularly immoral. This is justification for states to abuse environmental protection laws simply because they want to advance their economic interests. We feel like this is something that they have failed to defend in today's debate and definitely makes them fall at. Second, let's talk about how this advocacy is regrettable because it trivializes the struggle of these groups. We feel like the best thing to do is to be as sentimental as possible in order to get the most concessions from the most number of people. If sympathy and empathy and being ridiculously mushy is the way we are going to get leverage for animals we advocate for, we are very proud to propose the sentimental do-goodery on our side of the house. Third, we ask our question, which world is ultimately better? Because this is the bottom line of today's debate. A world which advances the interest of outgroups, or a world which advances self-interest to the exclusion of outgroups, despite without considering what could happen to them as a result. We feel also that this is beneficial to human beings because the expressions of right of outgroups improves our empathy and societal cohesion. Because this is what happens when you prioritize the rights of other people and prioritize and advance the interests of other species that are not yours or other people that are not yours. What happens as a result is society becomes more empathetic, and this empathy is particularly important for societal cohesion. We see more white people being more sympathetic and empathetic to one another when they look beyond themselves and so that they are not the ultimate consideration in their existence. Other people matter too. Conclusively, the world where survival of the fittest